Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Sportslook, the sports television program for the high plains of West Texas and eastern New Mexico. I'm your host, Doc Elder, and if you like the phrase, there's no time like the present, you're going to love tonight's episode because we've got a real-time interview with Ryan Shoemaker from Greyhound Athletics. We're going to have Josh Kroc, the head coach of Greyhound women's basketball. I'm going to give you some information about Sportslook in my overtime. So let's clear the set and let's bring in Ryan Shoemaker right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and back by popular demand, the Assistant Athletic Director, Ryan Shoemaker. Ryan, welcome back to Sportslook.
Popular demand. That may be a bit of a stretch, Doc, but happy to be back. It's always a good time with you.
Well, Ryan, it's not that we have a lack of people that we could bring on, but we wanted to bring you on so shortly after we had you on last time because a lot has changed in the last 3 weeks.
Yes, it was a really good day today for Greyhound Nation and in Greyhound land, Doc. Our men's and women's basketball teams both had their first practices today, albeit different practices than most people would think. They couldn't be in groups larger than 5. Everybody was wearing a mask. Everybody was 6 feet apart. But student athletes were in the building. They were practicing. We have all of our coaches back. We're back to we're back to what we're going to be doing from now until basically the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. Everybody has to get daily symptom checks, temperature checks. I have my yellow wristband here that signifies I'm allowed to be in the building. So all of the things that I mentioned last time I was on here are now in place, and we've got kids back on campus. So it's a really good day.
And the last time we had you on, that was the one thing that you were confident in saying is that when athletes were able to return, you felt confident that our athletic training staff would be able to handle that new responsibility.
Absolutely. And I think today, to be quite honest, they kind of surprised themselves. They've been working on it for so long. I mean, other Lone Star Conference teams have been able to have kids on campus, and they've been able to practice. So they've had live reps at all the different rules and safety practices that they have to do internally, much less when kids actually get onto the court or onto the field or whatever it may be. So, yeah, we were ready to go. Today went really well. I can't stress enough that I hope that decision is never made again, to not allow our student athletes in our athletic facilities practicing with our coaches. I talked to one of our basketball players 6 feet away with a mask on and all of that, and he just said, Ryan, today felt like the first normal day I've had in 5 months. I woke up, I attended class, I worked out, I drove to Greyhound Arena, I got ready for practice, I did all my checks, and then I practiced. And now I'm going to go do homework, I'm going to go to dinner, and then I'm going to go to sleep, and I'm going to wake up, do it all over again. And he said to me, that's what I'm built to do. And there are ways that we can safely practice and safely be amongst each other in our athletic programs. And our athletic training staff has worked so hard. Our athletic department has worked so hard to make it safe for our student athletes. And I hope everyone sees that and sees the value and how important it is for our young people to get back to a sense of normalcy. There's no guarantees beyond each day of practice right now, and they're really not taking it for granted, and that's such a good thing.
It may be a little self-serving on my part as a lifelong Laker fan to bring up the NBA season that just ended, but I think the NBA proved that if you are really cautious, and everybody plugs in that they're going to be cautious, you can have sports take place.
Absolutely, and for us, and compared to the NBA, it's a little bit different. I mean, there's no way we can create a true bubble. But if everyone takes accountability and everybody does their part, all of our student athletes, all of our coaches, all of our staff members do their part, we can create as close to a bubble atmosphere as possible. I mean, the NBA sent everybody to Orlando, and we just can't do that. We can't afford to do it. I just read an article before I came here that the University of Iowa is spending almost $500,000 a week to rent out hotel rooms and testing and all the things they're doing between just their football and basketball programs to play. we can't do that. But what we can do is we can keep our student athletes safe, and that just comes down to accountability, the hard work that our athletic training staff has put in, and the rest of our athletic staff, and then putting it into action. So yes, we're not quite the NBA, but close enough.
We talked about the fact this week basketball able to return. What's the timetable for the other sports, or that kind of still to be determined?
So the rest of our sports will begin coming back the first week of November. Each sport has a different day, and I can't remember which sport is on which day, will be their official reporting day. All of our student athletes will come back on that particular day, and each sport will test on that particular day. We've ordered our own testing, not our own, but we have ordered a testing system to where we are going to be able to test and read the test within a few hours internally at Greyhound Arena. So as soon as our student athletes for all of our other sports return, they will be tested in each one of those days. If they happen to test positive, they will have to quarantine. It'll be reported, all those different things. But that will ensure that when our athletes come back, they're safe. And then it's just all steps to keep them safe beyond that point. So our teams won't be allowed to practice any more than 8 hours a week. They'll have to stay in less than groups of 5. They'll have to wear masks at all times, whether they're inside, outside, weight room, running, standing, whatever, team meetings. Each team has their own pod of players. So each 5 players that can sometimes get within 6 feet will stay the same. That way, if there is an outbreak or there is a positive test, that limits the amount of players that have to be quarantined or taken out of practice. So, that's the brief summary of the 20-page document that we've been working on for months now. But to see that finally get put in place is really cool, and I think it makes all of our staff and just our whole athletic department feel good, which is good after the last couple months that we've had.
Ryan, obviously one issue among many that the COVID pandemic created was fundraising, and we're happy to say that if people would like to contribute to athletics, which they should, because athletes coming back to campus, it's not going to be all that long before we're going to start playing again. There are ways that people can contribute.
Yes, we're hoping that athletes coming back means that our valued donors and the people that are a part of all that success will also come back. And there's a couple ways they can do that. One thing I do want to say is this year's Greyhound Club and the corporate partnership is going to look a lot different than previous years. And the main theme of that is we don't know what we're going to be able to provide. We can't really promise anything. Stuff has changed day to day, week to week, hour by hour. I would love to sit here and say that we can have, fans in the stands, or we can even be playing games or any of those things, but nothing is promised right now. So we're opening up our corporate partnership program. We'll be getting in contact with some of those corporate partners that have donated in the past. We'll send them out our 2020-2021 corporate partner prospectus and what we know we're able to provide as far as advertising, digital programs, some of those things, but it's going to look vastly different. Greyhound Club members can sign back up online and give their donation online on goeasternathletics.com under the donate tab. Right now we're at a place where things are looking good. We have some of our student athletes back on campus. The plans we've been working on are going into effect. We're continuing to talk about possible spring seasons. So we hope that creates a little bit of excitement around Greyhound Nation as well and encourages people to donate.
Absolutely. And one more time, give you a chance to say the actual website.
Yes, goeasternathletics.com, and then under the donate tab. And then there's a Greyhound Club donation section.
Ryan, of course, you got hired as the assistant sports information director. You became the sports information director. We had a sports information director, lost our sports information director, but now I understand that by this time next week, we probably will know who our new SID is. We
are really hoping, Doc. We've got a couple really good candidates that we're excited about. And with all of our sports playing at the same time throughout this spring semester, I'm going to need some help. So really excited for whoever that may be, and can't wait to hopefully get them on here and have them become part of Greyhound Nation.
And obviously, this may be another situation we have no way of knowing, but if there are students who are planning to come back to campus in the spring semester and like sports, aren't good enough to actually plan a team, but like sports, do you think there's still a possibility you'll be able to use students in your office?
I don't know about on the day-to-day operations. I think we're kind of, as we mentioned earlier, trying to create as close to that bubble as possible. But there's no way we can operate our athletic events without the help of student workers. And whether or not students are back on campus, somehow, some way, we're still going to have student worker help. So when that time comes, for those that are interested, they're more than welcome to get in contact with me, and we'll see if we can get something set up, because that's something I've talked about a lot on here. And I truly enjoy working with students, and they really just make us go. And once again, I'm going to need some help this spring, so I'll be looking to some student workers for that.
Well, Ryan, 3 weeks ago when we had you on, we were dealing completely in theoretical, but we've moved to the practical, and let's hope that December 10th, maybe, that we can actually see Eastern athletics.
Yep, Doc, nothing official yet from the conference. Those internally and behind the scenes, there's just so many things that are being talked about, worked on. That's not going to work. This may work. And it goes just far beyond Eastern New Mexico. I mean, from a university standpoint, from a state standpoint, from the conference standpoint, from the NCAA standpoint, a lot of people are working really hard. And it's days like this where we can see some of our plans go into action and work, and we can safely get those student athletes back and our coaches coaching again. That's what we all do it for. So hopefully when we have some more concrete news with some schedules, we can get that going again.
Ryan, thanks so much for being my guest.
Appreciate it, Doc.
All right, well, that is going to wrap up our first interview segment. So what we'll do is we'll clear the set and we'll bring in Josh Brock right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and an honor to bring back to the set of Sportslook the head coach of Greyhound women's basketball, Josh Brock. And Coach, welcome back to Sportslook.
So it's great. It's a great feeling to be back, Doc. To knowing the crazy times we're in, to be able to sit here and talk to a legend is awesome.
Speaking of which, the last time that I saw you in an official capacity was at the Lone Star Conference postseason tournament, where you had a huge win in the quarterfinals against Charlton State, a win that not only got you into the semis, but also got you into the NCAA postseason.
Yeah, Doc, it was a tremendous win. Our girls really maintained a tremendous amount of toughness through that game, Doc. There was a lot of ups and downs. I mean, where we had a little bit of a lead, they got a little bit of a lead, and then late they were up, and then we just kept fighting back. And two kids stick out in that game. I mean, obviously Zamry Cox had a tremendous game. Liv, it's funny, her first 2 points of the game were the game winner in a sense. And then I do remember Natalie DeLong. She had a tremendous game, had a couple big shots in that game. So I was proud of our kids. It was great to get that first win. And then, like you said, I mean, it really was the win that propelled us into the NCAA tournament.
Of course, you mentioned a young lady that came last year, played 1 year, Jasmine Williams, another player that fit into that category. And if you had only 1 year out of those two young ladies, they gave you pretty good years.
Doc, we've been very blessed and fortunate to have some of these 1 year kids that we've had. You go back to Triana Clay, she was tremendous for a year. Then Jasmine Williams and Natalie DeLong filled roles very nicely for us. And it's just kind of a fill and plug and place type thing, Doc. And so we were excited to get those kids, in place. And it ended up being a great year. We were a couple wins away from setting an all-time win records here. So, it was a great team and a great year.
And of course, you mentioned the fact that we did bring in a couple of transfers, but the other two young ladies you mentioned, Zam Cox, and first of all, I understand congratulations going out to Zam this year?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was late July. She texted me and said, "Hey, Coach, I got engaged." I'm like, "Oh, congratulations, so next year, what time's the wedding and stuff?" And she's like, "It's August 11th, Coach." And I'm like, Okay. So she did it over Central Christian, and Pastor Thomas did a great job. And so she is married now, but she's sticking with her Cox for basketball purposes and different things right now. So, but yeah, I mean, she's very happily married, and so it's good for her for sure.
So I all of a sudden went off track because I remembered, wait a sec, she may have a last name, but she, of course, Sam Cox, a New Mexico kid,
Yeah.
Olivia Lewis, a New Mexico kid, and you've done a really good job of recruiting the state of New Mexico.
Well, thank you, Doc. I mean, when we first got here, we made that a priority. You know, we knew, you know, from talking to coaches, AAU coaches, and different people, we knew the state had really good girls basketball talent here, and so we just had to do a good job to lock that talent in the state. And we knew it was going to be over time that we were going to have to get that done, and we did. And we've been blessed to have the kids, and you know, we've got a commitment from a young lady. Obviously, we can't talk about their names or anything like that, but she'll be signing here in the next month, and we think that she's the best guard in the state this year. So, and she's from Albuquerque, so you know, hopefully those New Mexico ties keep on going.
We talked about the fact that you've got a couple of New Mexico kids that were pretty good, but we don't want to diss the Lone Star State. You had a young lady by the name of Natalie Stice who came to Eastern, paid her dues, sat, got a chance to play, and by the end of the season, she was one of your most dependable scorers.
She was. I mean, you look through last year, we thought we were very comfortable with Zam as our point guard. You know, Liv did a good job, Natalie did a good job, and Jazz did a pretty good job in her role. We just kept searching to find that other starter, and so we got to the Texas International game last year. You know, we just decided as a coaching staff to insert, you know, her into that role, and boy, she responded with 22 points, and you know, to her credit, she never really relinquished that starting role, and she did a great job. And so she came in this year, she's coming in this year ready to go, and so it'll be exciting to see where she goes.
You are fortunately not a one-person show. None of us are, but especially in the world of basketball, if you've got a great assistant coach, that's such a blessing. And you had one that you kind of knew pretty well before she became your assistant. Yeah,
no, we were fortunate to, you know, this past year, just for the fans to know, Coach Jennings, he actually got married as well. We had a lot of weddings this summer with the basketball program, and you know, he got married, and his wife is from the Arlington, Texas area, and she had a really good job there. And her job really there really wasn't much out here for her profession, so he started looking into jobs there. And fortunately for him, he was able to get the North Texas women's assistant. And he's loving it, doing a great job there. You know, and then for me, it was a no-brainer. You know, I had Michaela Connor on staff. She played for me for 3 years. I mean, the little girls love her. She was ready for the role. It was more about, is she ready, and does she want it herself? Does she feel, because I knew she was ready. And so, you know, the offer went out, she accepted. And we were able to get her. And then she has a cousin named Will Watkins, and he was a GA, or kind of a student assistant helper for Texas A&M Commerce Women. And so we had a GA position come open, and called him up and kind of had to work out some details. But other than that, he's here now. He's our GA, and he's done a phenomenal job, you know, too. So kind of got KK's blood as well here with a cousin of hers. But anyway, we got a great coaching staff. I'm looking forward to working with those two.
How will Michaela's role change now that she's gone from a grad assistant to being the #2 chair?
Yeah, I mean, obviously she knows that, you know, you always talk about the vice president of the United States, you're one breath away. I guess that's the same way for an assistant coach, you're one breath away. And that's what I told her. I said, you know, I mean, she's the next in charge, you know, and the communication line is different. You know, as a GA, you talk to the assistant a little bit more and stuff like that. They talk to the head coach, but you know, I said, as my assistant, I obviously need that constant line of communication from my assistant, you know, kind of what's going on with the girls that she can see and things like that. So the communication line changes a little bit, but she's been awesome. I mean, it's been phenomenal. I mean, we've been obviously not been able to go till here, you know, recently, but I mean, you know, she's still been awesome about constantly communicating me and updating me stuff. So done a great job.
Now that the week arrived when you could actually meet with your young ladies, and you were joking with me before we actually started filming that with a couple of young ladies, it was the first time you were actually able to see them in person. And how do you go about deciding which pod is going to be comprised of which of your players?
That's a great question. I mean, obviously these are unprecedented times for all of us, you know, and we've been able to sit back and kind of watch other people do stuff and ask them what they're doing, seek out input and from other coaches and how they're doing stuff. And, you know, we're doing our best to keep roommates together, keep people that live in the same house together. For some reason, somebody, you know, were to test positive or something and they have to quarantine, well, their roommate has to quarantine. Well, they're in that same pod, so that pod would be the only pod that necessarily has to quarantine and stuff. And so we are around each other a little bit, but we're doing our best as coaches to make sure there's not a lot of contact and stuff like that, just because, I mean, obviously within their pod they're okay, but we're still trying to be very careful about that. And, you know, our girls have done a tremendous job, Doc. I mean, most of our girls have been here since August. You know, they decided to come on back, and without a lot of us having the, you know, sometimes as a coach, you know, you can kind of direct the pass. Like, say, you got to do this, you got to do this. But when we don't have that luxury and they have to do it themselves, Doc, they've been great. You know, we've had, you know, little to no cases at all within our team. And I've been very proud of them. They've taken this thing very seriously, which obviously very, very much is. It's a very serious disease, and our girls have been very responsible with it, so I've been very proud of them.
In terms of the school year, it's, for me, kind of a strange experience because I'm teaching 3 classes in an empty room, talking to a camera, so I just try and imagine it's a really long episode of Sportslook that I'm taping. But some of the classes are meeting with an instructor, and so I can imagine you don't have just a total luxury of saying, I can practice anytime I want to during the school day.
No, I mean, it's actually, to be honest with you, that's a great question you bring up, Doc. It's actually been a little tougher, you know, to try to find a time. I mean, just because there are some girls that everything is, like you said, strictly online and they can pretty much do their class whenever, but there are some instructors, like you said, are requiring their students to during the time period. So we've been blessed, though. We've been able to find a time just basically right in the middle of the late morning, early afternoon. So what's nice for me, Doc, is I'll be able to go home and be with my family, you know, every night and not have to worry about a later practice. I mean, today, you know, we had a little bit of a later day just because we were waiting to, you know, we got all our tests back and we're all good, so we had to get all that stuff done. So, but for the most part, it'll be early today, so it'll be nice.
We do have student athletes back on campus. That's the good news. Got safety protocols in place. That's the good news. We think we have an idea when maybe the games will start. Not sure, but we're thinking maybe December 10th would be a start date.
That's the plan. I mean, that's what I know the athletic directors have talked about right now. Obviously, the presidents are still, you know, I don't know about you, Doc. I'm not sure I'd want to be a university president right now. I mean, it's just, you know, the amount of pressure I know, and Dr. Caldwell, she's just done a phenomenal job of guiding us through this, and so I know it's tough, and the presidents of this conference are trying to make the decision. They're trying to balance the well-being of the health and safety, well-being of the student athletes, but also understanding that they need this in their lives to do this, and that's a tough balance. And so my hats goes off to them. And so the plan is right now, yeah, but it's like I told our girls, I said, this is a day-to-day thing, ladies. We've got to be flexible, got to be willing to change when necessary, and just continue to roll with the punches.
I would think that we'd have December 10th, 12th. Would we have 17th, 19th, and then a break?
Yeah, that's the plan right now. It'd be the 10th and 12th, 17th, 19th. Then a Christmas break. And, I mean, it all depends on right now, you know, with the state having the quarantine, you know, how that's going to affect our travel and our team and stuff. So, like I said, it's day by day, you know. I know the other colleges and universities in the state are trying to figure it out, too. And, I mean, there's just no leader in this country right now. None of them have an easy decision. It's all tough. And I just, you know, my hat goes off to them, praying for wisdom for all of them, and that's all we can do.
In the past, you've had some really good guards, you've had some really good post players. Theoretically, you'd be really strong in both aspects, but just in the limited amount of time you've had to look at the players for this year, do you think you're going to be more pounded inside and then kick the ball out, or are you going to be letting it loose from the outside and then creating more post opportunities?
That's a great question, Doc. You know, that's kind of become our identity, is our big post game. You know, we've been able to be really big, and you know, been able to lay eyes a little bit on the 2 post kids we got from, you know, from Louisiana Tech, Jimmy Chamond, and the other kid from Hampton University, Alexis Johnson, and Stacy Ojibwe from California. She's a little smaller, undersized post kid, but I tell you, Doc, I mean, we're probably going to be the same way we were last year. You know, I mean, just from the little watching that we've had, we'll be pounding inside and, you know, going from there. So we're looking forward to it.
Coach, congratulations on the success. You've gone to the NCAA postseason 3 out of the last 4 years. Let's hope that this is 4 out of 5.
That's our goal, and I appreciate it, Doc. And like I said, it's always a pleasure. It's great to be back. This feels so normal, you know. So it's good to be back, Doc.
All right. Well, that is going to wrap up the interview portion of Sportslook. So I'll finish up with an overtime right now. In May of 2017, a young man by the name of Ryan Schrader was one of 22 graduates of Clayton High School up in the northeastern part of the state of New Mexico. Ryan came to Eastern New Mexico University and became a part of the Sportslook crew and was so good at his task that he became one of the co-hosts of High School Spotlight. He was so good at that he became the top-ranking student on the Sportslook staff. I put that in the past tense because he no longer is with Sportslook, but for a good reason. Last week we found out that he was hired by a KRQE in Albuquerque. So Ryan, best of luck to you and to your replacement, Landry Sena. Good luck trying to keep me in check like he did. Well, that is going to wrap up an episode of Sportslook, and I would like to thank my guests. I'd like to thank Ryan Shoemaker from Greyhound Athletics, Josh Prock, the head coach of Greyhound Women's Basketball, had a floor crew, and I had a young lady by the name of Miss Marilyn who did a fantastic job as my floor director. So, for those aforementioned people, this is Doc Elder saying, so long.